Hey there. Ready to dive into a part of American history that doesn't always make it into the textbooks. We're
Mm.
talking about the Philippine-American War,
hmm
a conflict, that happened right around the turn of the 20th century. And trust me, this is a story full of twists and turns.
It really is.
It's a period that I think, well, how would you describe it? What's your take on why this is an important period for us to look at?
I think it really challenges those simplistic narratives that we sometimes have about American expansionism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're going to do today is unpack a story of clashing ambitions,
Yeah.
shifting strategies, and a fight for freedom that really resonated on both sides of the Pacific.
Yeah, and to help us kind of navigate this complex landscape,
Right.
we're going to be drawing on an episode of American History Tellers.
Okay.
Now, this episode lays out the narrative. It's a good overview.
Sure.
But you know us, we're going to dig a little deeper. We're going to explore the nuances and try to connect the dots in a way that makes this history come alive.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So, okay,
Yeah.
picture this. It's 1898. The Spanish-American War has just ended.
Right.
And the United States finds itself in possession of the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So now President McKinley, he's facing a dilemma,
Yeah. Okay.
what to do with this archipelago that's thousands of miles away.
The big question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question.
And you have to remember that the United States wasn't the only player
Right,
in this game.
right,
You had Emilio Aguinaldo,
right,
who was the leader of the Filipino revolutionary movement.
right.
He'd been fighting for independence from Spain for years,
Mm-hmm.
and he saw the United States as an ally.
Right.
He believed they shared the same goal, liberating the Philippines.
So, I mean, can you imagine Aguinaldo's shock when the Treaty of Paris, officially ends the Spanish-American War
Right.
and hands the Philippines over to the United States?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a curveball.
I know.
Instead of, becoming this beacon of freedom that they thought they were going to get,
Mhm.
the U.S. suddenly looks a lot like a new colonizer.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where the seeds of conflicts were sown.
Mm-hmm.
You have McKinley talking about governing the Philippines under the free flag of the United States.
Right.
Meanwhile, Aguinaldo and his supporters see it as a betrayal,
Yeah.
a continuation of colonial rule, just under a new master.
Right.
Like, come on, guy.
Yeah, you're just replacing the Spaniards.
Exactly.
I thought it was interesting how in American History Tellers, they described this meeting that
Mhm.
McKinley had with Methodist church leaders.
Okay.
And you've got these religious figures pushing for this idea of benevolent assimilation,
Mhm.
this idea of, uplifting the Filipinos
Right.
through Christianity,
Mhm.
American values, American education.
Okay.
But I mean, looking back on it now, was it really that simple?
Well, I think it's important, right, to really unpack that concept of benevolent assimilation
Mm-hmm.
because, it assumes a certain superiority of American culture,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it has a real paternalistic view of the Filipinos.
Yeah.
It's presented as this altruistic thing,
Right. Right.
but it totally ignores the existing culture
Yeah.
and the aspirations of the Filipino people.
Right. And let's not forget about, the economic motivations
Absolutely.
at play here. The United States, they had their eye on those Asian markets,
Mhm.
and they saw the Philippines as this strategic stepping stone
100%.
to access them.
Yeah, that Chinese market was booming at the time.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, it was really a huge motivating factor.
So you've got this, I don't know, this complex mix
Yeah.
of religious fervor,
Right.
economic ambition,
hmm
a belief in American exceptionalism all
Yeah.
swirling around McKinley as he's trying to figure out what to do with the Philippines.
It's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, and it's really striking to me
Mm-hmm.
how this internal debate
Yeah.
in the United States
Right.
is mirrored by these tensions within the Filipino leadership.
Absolutely. Following the fall of Malolos, which was
Yeah.
Aguinaldo's headquarters,
Right.
there was a real split
Okay.
within the Filipino ranks.
Mm-hmm.
Some favored surrender.
Okay.
They saw the Americans as too powerful to defeat.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
But others, like Apolinario Mabini,
Okay.
who was known as the brains of the revolution,
Oh, wow.
they argued for continued resistance,
Right.
and they were advocating for guerrilla warfare.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you also have General Antonio Luna,
Mhm.
who was this kind of fiery figure.
Right.
And he also believed that guerrilla tactics were the key to wearing down the Americans.
Okay.
But, as American history tellers points out,
Yeah.
trying to coordinate a resistance movement under this pressure. It's
Right.
not easy.
Not at all. Yeah.
It's really not.
So, by February 1899, the situation in Manila, it's
Yeah.
incredibly tense.
Oh, yeah.
You've got American troops on high alert, Filipino soldiers who are, they're itching for a fight.
Right.
And then on the night of February 4th,
Uh-huh.
something happens
Okay.
that changes everything.
This is a pivotal moment.
Yeah, this is it.
An American sentry, he fires on a group of Filipino soldiers.
Mm.
And suddenly, all those simmering tensions,
Yeah.
they erupt into open warfare.
And back in Washington, this incident
Right.
becomes a political football, right?
Oh, yeah.
The debate over the Treaty of Paris,
Uh-huh.
which had been, going on in Congress,
Mm-hmm.
it intensifies.
Yeah.
And Senator George Frisbee Hoare,
Okay.
he really emerges as this vocal opponent of annexation, saying, forcing American rule on the Filipinos goes against everything this nation stands for.
He was a powerful voice
Yeah.
against the war.
He
A
was.
really principled guy.
But for McKinley, the fighting breaks out.
Yeah.
And this gives him the ammunition he needs
Right?
to push the treaty through.
Okay.
He frames the incident as Filipino aggression, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, we have to restore order.
Right.
You know?
It's like, look what they made us do.
Yeah, look what they made us do. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, despite Hoare's arguments,
Right.
the treaty is ratified
Boy,
by a single vote.
just one vote.
One vote.
Wow.
And that sets the stage for this bloody conflict that's going to drag on for years.
It's amazing how these things can hinge on just a handful of votes.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one vote.
Wow.
But it's interesting, though, that
Yeah.
even as this war breaks out,
Yeah.
there's this disconnect between, the official narrative
Well, yeah.
coming from the military
Uh-huh.
and the reality on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
You've got General Elwell Otis,
Okay.
the American commander in the Philippines.
Right.
He's sending these optimistic reports back to Washington.
Like, everything's fine.
Yeah, we're winning.
Victory's just around the corner.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the troops they're facing fierce resistance.
Yeah.
And it's a far more complex situation than he's letting on.
So it's kind of a story of miscalculation and hubris,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The Americans, they underestimated
They did.
the Filipinos' determination
Yeah.
to fight for their freedom.
Right.
And that underestimation,
She didn't get back to bite them.
it's going to have some pretty significant consequences as the war goes on.
Yeah, it is.
It's a classic case of wishful thinking,
Right.
clashing with the realities of war.
Yeah.
You can't impose your will
Right.
on people who are determined to resist,
Right.
no matter how powerful your military is.
It's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
It's just not how it works.
It's not how it works, no. So as the war drags on,
Mm-hmm.
you start to see these cracks
All right.
appearing in the American facade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
The American History Tellers episode talks about
Right.
how public support
Right.
for the war
Yeah.
it begins to dwindle
Sure.
as casualties mount and the
Yeah.
fighting just drags on and on and on.
Right, because remember, this wasn't
Yeah.
this quick, decisive victory that everyone had kind of envisioned at the beginning.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It turned into something quite different.
It did. It really did.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
how war can really shift public opinion like that.
Right. Yeah.
Initially there's this wave of patriotic fervor.
Uh-huh.
This idea that the United States is spreading democracy.
Right. We're the good guys.
We're spreading civilization.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as the realities of the conflict become clear,
Mm-hmm.
the brutality, the mounting costs,
Yeah.
that narrative starts to unravel.
It does, and that's where figures like Sixto Lopez come in.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
He's this Filipino activist who's risking everything.
He's putting it all on the line.
He is, yeah. He's traveling to the United States
Wow.
to speak out against the war.
To try and change people's minds.
Yeah, he wants to change,
Yeah.
American public perception.
Okay.
He's arguing Filipinos. They're not
Oh.
savages who need saving.
Right.
They're people who are yearning for.
And they want self-determination.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff.
He really embodies the resilience
Mhm.
of the Filipino independence movement.
100%.
He understands that to win their cause,
Right.
they need international support.
They need to get people on their side.
Yeah. And so he's taking the message
Mm-hmm.
directly to the heart of the American empire.
It's a bold move.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder,
Whoa.
what impact his words
Right.
had
Yeah.
on the people who heard him speak.
Yeah.
Did they start to question the war?
Yeah.
Did they see Filipinos in a new light?
Did it change any minds?
I mean, who knows?
It's hard to say.
Right. It's impossible to say.
Yeah, but his presence,
Yeah.
it undoubtedly challenged
You do.
the prevailing narrative.
Absolutely. And you see this growing anti-war sentiment
Mm-hmm.
reflected in the rise of the Anti-Imperialist League.
Right, back in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay.
They saw the war
Yeah.
as this betrayal
Like
of
for-
American ideals.
Yeah.
They saw it as a dangerous step toward empire.
It's like, this isn't who we are.
Yeah.
This isn't what we stand for.
Yeah, and one of the key figures in the Anti-Imperialist League
Okay.
was Helen Marat,
Okay.
who co-founded the Philadelphia chapter.
Right.
And what's interesting about her story, is that she connected
Yeah.
the fight for Filipino independence to
Yeah.
these broader struggles for social justice
Right.
back home.
Right. She's making those connections.
Yeah, she's recognizing the
Understand.
hypocrisy
Yeah.
of fighting for freedom abroad.
Right. Freedom for me, but not for thee.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
yeah.
Okay.
While denying basic rights
Right.
to marginalized groups in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a real double standard.
Yeah, and so for her,
Mhm.
the war,
Yeah.
it wasn't just this distant conflict. It was a reflection
Okay.
of inequalities
Yeah.
within American society.
I mean, it's a powerful insight.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got this, fascinating parallel between the Filipino struggle
Mm.
for independence,
Right.
and then the ongoing battles
Yeah.
for civil rights
Okay.
equality
Yeah.
back in the U.S.
It's like these struggles are all connected.
They're all intertwined. Yeah.
Yeah.
But despite these growing voices of dissent,
Uh-huh.
McKinley wins re-election
Oh, wow.
in 1900.
Okay.
And this victory, it really emboldens the military
Okay.
to take a more aggressive approach
Oh, wow.
in the Philippines.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, and that's when General Arthur MacArthur
Okay.
takes command.
Oh,
And
yeah.
unlike Otis,
Mm-hmm.
MacArthur had a much more realistic
Right.
view of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
He recognized the challenges
Yeah.
of fighting a guerrilla war,
Okay.
but his frustration, it led to a brutal escalation of the conflict.
And when you get frustrated, you sometimes do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, you lash out.
Exactly.
And the American History Tellers episode really highlights this shift in strategy. MacArthur implemented tactics
Right.
that targeted civilians,
Oh, wow.
which led to,
This is bad.
mass detentions,
I-
village burnings,
Yeah.
and just
It's just almost
widespread
Yeah.
human rights abuses.
It's a dark chapter.
Yeah, and the episode really, it doesn't shy away from the horrific consequences
Yeah.
of MacArthur's policies.
Yeah.
It makes you question the true cost of victory.
Yeah. How far is a nation willing to go
Yeah, how far are you willing to go?
to achieve its objectives?
Yeah, and at what point do you
Yeah.
say, okay, enough is enough?
Right. What happens when military necessity clashes with
Yeah.
ethical consideration?
Exactly, and the episode focuses specifically on the island of Samar.
Okay.
Although it was mistakenly called Manduk
Yeah.
in the source.
Okay.
But that's where MacArthur unleashed a particularly brutal campaign.
Okay.
And this was in retaliation for a surprise attack by Filipino guerrillas
Okay.
that resulted in heavy American casualties.
So they're getting payback.
Yeah, it was payback.
It's a prime example of how the fog of war
Yeah.
can lead to to these horrific acts of violence.
Right.
It's like this
Yeah.
this cycle of retribution.
Right. Yeah.
Each side escalating
Yeah, you did this, so we're gonna do this.
the brutality.
Right, exactly.
And in the end,
Yeah.
it's the innocent civilians who suffer the most.
They always do.
It's tragic.
It's really tragic.
Yeah.
And tragically, I mean, this pattern of
Yeah.
violence, retaliation,
Yeah.
I mean, it continued,
It did.
shaping the final years of the war
Yeah.
and casting this long shadow.
I mean, it's a tough legacy to overcome.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder
Yeah.
that the wounds of war
Mm,
can take generations to
absolutely.
heal,
Yeah.
and that the pursuit of victory can
Oh, yeah.
come at a terrible human cost.
I think that's a really important point to remember.
So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from McKinley's dilemma to the rise of the Filipino resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and then, how brutal the war became under MacArthur.
Yeah, it was a tough period.
What I find fascinating is
Yeah.
how this conflict, which, is often overlooked in history classes,
Totally.
it exposes the complexities
It does.
of American imperialism.
It really does. It forces you to confront,
Yeah.
those contradictions at the heart of American identity.
Right.
You have this nation that's founded on these principles of liberty and self-determination,
Right.
and then they're engaging in a war
To suppress somebody else.
to suppress another nation's independence movement.
Exactly. It's like, wait a minute.
It's like, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
It's a story that really challenges,
It does.
those easy narratives
Yeah.
that we tell ourselves about American exceptionalism.
Yeah, it's not so exceptional.
Right. It's not always so clear cut,
It's not. And for the Filipino people,
right?
this war was a defining moment
Absolutely.
in their history.
Yeah.
I mean, they fought so valiantly.
They did for their freedom,
We really did.
enduring incredible hardships
Yeah.
and facing overwhelming odds.
I mean, it's striking the resilience of the Filipino people throughout this whole conflict,
Yeah.
even when they, faced setbacks
Right.
on the battlefield.
Yeah. They never gave up hope.
They never gave up. Yeah.
Independence.
Think about,
Yeah.
figures like Trinidad Perez Texan,
Yeah. What a story.
who defied traditional gender roles
Totally.
to become a leader
Yeah.
in the resistance.
Right.
I mean, her story just it speaks volumes
It really has.
about the widespread support
Yeah.
for independence,
Mm.
the willingness of ordinary people to
Well,
risk everything.
To put it all on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. To fight for what they believe
It's
in.
their freedom. Yeah.
It's really powerful stuff.
It's a reminder that history is made
Yeah.
not just by, presidents in general.
Right. It's not just the big names.
Yeah, it's by
Yeah.
ordinary people
Right.
who choose to stand up.
To make a difference.
Yeah.
To stand up for what they believe in.
Exactly.
Even when the odds are stacked against them.
Yeah, even when it seems impossible.
Absolutely.
And I think
Right.
that's
One of the most important takeaways from this whole deep dive,
I agree.
the Philippine American War.
Right.
It wasn't just this distant conflict.
It wasn't just something that happened over there.
Yeah, it was a struggle
Right.
for freedom and self-determination.
And that has echoes, in countless other historical moments.
Yeah, we see this over and over
Exactly.
throughout history.
I think it also raises some really important questions.
Yeah.
How we remember
Right.
and interpret history.
How do you teach this?
Yeah. Because the Philippine American War,
Mm-hmm.
it's often, overshadowed
Yeah, people don't talk about it.
by other events of the era,
Right.
but its legacy continues to shape
It does.
the relationship
Yeah.
between the U.S. and the Philippines to this day.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to understand that this war,
Right.
it wasn't just about
Yeah.
military victories or political maneuvering, right? It was about people.
Right.
It was about their lives,
It's about people at the end of the day.
their hopes,
Yeah.
their dreams.
Right.
And as we've seen,
Yeah.
the human cost of this conflict
Yeah.
was immense.
It was. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left wondering, what can
Yeah.
we learn
Right. What are the lessons here?
from this chapter of history that's often overlooked?
Yeah. What can we take away?
How does understanding it
Yeah.
help us navigate the world we live in today?
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
That's a really big question.
But I think, it challenges us
I think you're right.
to be critical thinkers.
To not just accept things at face value,
Yeah, exactly.
to question
The narrative.
those easy narratives
Yeah.
that we're often presented with.
Right, because it's rarely black and white.
It's rarely that simple.
It's not.
There are always multiple perspectives.
Right.
There are always, conflicting motivations,
Mm.
unintended consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, things we didn't see coming.
Right. Exactly. And I think most importantly,
Yeah.
it reminds us to listen
Right.
to the voices
Yeah.
of those who are often silenced,
Right.
those who are marginalized or overlooked.
Yeah, we need to hear their stories.
We
The stories of the Filipino people.
absolutely
Their struggles, their triumphs. I mean, they deserve to be heard
they do
and understood.
100%. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity,
Yeah, if you want to learn more,
I encourage you to explore further.
yeah, go down the rabbit hole.
There are so many books,
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there.
articles, documentaries.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
It really is.
And knowledge is power,
That's what they say.
as they say. And the more we understand the past,
Yeah,
the better equipped we are
right. To make better
to
decisions.
create a more just and equitable future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So thanks for joining us
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
on this deep dive into the Philippine-American War.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.